اللهم صل على المصطفى نبي الرسالة وبحر الصفا.
رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. يا ربي بالمصطفى بلغ مقاصدنا واغفر لنا ما مضى يا واسع الكرم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الحسين مني وأنا من حسين أحب الله من أحب حسينا. وقال سيدنا إمام الشافعي رضي الله عنه يا أهل بيت رسول الله حبكم فرض من الله في القرآن أنزله يكفيكم من عظيم القدر أنكم من لم يصلي عليكم لا صلاة له. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك لمن الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Alhamdulillah, all praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who selects and elects from his slaves whom he wills. And so he selected and he elected the messengers and prophets. And from amongst them he selected the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And then from amongst them Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose for them disciples and followers and companions and families who were chosen because of their beautiful characteristics and their closeness to those messengers. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declared and decreed before he even created creation that the family of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam would be purified in the Quran. And so these are people who we are talking about, who are mentioned before the beginning of the universe, the beginning of time, before the beginning of space. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions them before existence itself. And so this is who we are sat talking about today, alhamdulillah. And so these people were elected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and from the most elect are the family of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This family is the purest and the greatest. This is the crowning jewel of humanity itself. In the entire spectrum of human beings from the beginning till the end, Muslim, non-Muslim, those with justice and those without any prejudice will declare that there is nobody like the family of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. From Sayyiduna Adam alayhi salam to the Ahl-Ul-Bait al-Kiram to Sayyiduna Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, there is no line of people that are greater than them. And so this is a sharaf and a unique quality of Islam. He gave us the Quran, he gave us the deen of Islam, he gave us the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he gave us the Ahl-Ul-Bait of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Nobody else has been given this. The previous messengers, the previous nations were not given this sharaf. We have the family of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and they are pride, they are honor, and they are the symbol of our love for the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And peace and blessings perpetually be upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the source of every goodness, the beauty of every beauty sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He is the greatest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation, and everything that we're going to mention of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu an, it is an indication of who the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is, who he is. It's an indication. If this is the greatness of the grandson, then what about the grandfather? This is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So when we're talking about Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu an, we are talking about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Why? Because the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam has said, Al-Hussain minni wa ana min Hussain. That Sayyidina Imam Hussain is from me and I am from Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. Now what does that mean? That Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, he comes from the very flesh and blood of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is why in many narrations you will find the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam referring to Sayyidina Imam Hassan and Sayyidina Imam Hussain not as his grandchildren. He refers to them as his children. He doesn't refer to them as grandsons, he refers to them as sons. Bring my sons to me, he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when we look at the narration of the birth of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, one of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she sees a dream and she considers it a nightmare. She comes to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and she said, I saw something that shook me in my dream. He said, what did you see? She said that I saw that a piece of your flesh was being cut and it was placed in my lap. And the Prophet ﷺ said, glad tidings. She said, Ya Rasulullah, what do you mean glad tidings? I'm still suffering from that sight. He said that my daughter Fatima will give birth to a son. This is a sign that she will give birth. And the distance between Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anh being born and Sayyidina Imam Hussain being conceived, some say was only about 50 days. Very short period of time Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anh was conceived. And this is the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what was going to happen. And so both of these grandchildren of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam were born in very close proximity. And when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam received news of the birth of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, he was in the masjid. And he very swiftly went to the house of Sayyidina Fatima radiallahu anha and he said, where is my son? Yeah, he didn't say grandson, where is my son? Yeah, he's telling Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhul kareem, he's mine. Yeah, he's mine before he's yours. He belongs to me because he is from me. He's been gifted through you, but he is from me. So Sayyidina, the Prophet ﷺ holds him, and the Prophet ﷺ places his blessed saliva in the mouth of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. Yeah. Now when a child is in the womb of the mother, they are being fed and they are being nurtured by the nourishment of the mother. And when a child comes out of the womb of the mother, imagine the first thing that enters into you is what you are then made up of. And from the sunnah of the tahniq, we have dates or we have the narration of honey. Here Sayyidina Imam Hussain, the first thing that enters into him from this world is the saliva of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's the first thing that enters into him. And here you are made of what goes into you. So he is made up from the nourishment of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If the saliva of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when placed on the eye of Sayyidina Qatada radiallahu anhu, healed it and returned it back into its socket, to the extent that he said later on in my life I couldn't remember which eye was injured because they're both the same to me. Yeah? If that's what the saliva of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam does to the eye of Sayyidina Qatada radiallahu anhu, and if the saliva of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam cures the venomous bite of a snake on Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, imagine what the saliva did to Sayyidina Imam Hussain that entered into his mouth and entered into his stomach and became him. This is the power of the blessed saliva of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam takes him and he asks Sayyidina Ali, what are you going to name him? On one narration, famous narration, yeah, what does he mention about all three of his children? Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu, Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, Sayyidina Muhsin radiallahu anhu. He says harb on every single one, war. And name him war. In another narration he says, I'm going to name him Ja'far. Yeah, after the brother of Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhul kareem, Sayyidina Ja'far al-Tayyar, yeah, the one with two wings as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam described him. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah has declared from above the heavens that I name him Hussain. Yeah. So the fadl of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, from every angle that you look at, you know, when you look at something from an angle, it looks beautiful. You look at it from somewhere else, it doesn't look as beautiful. You see somebody from the front, they look beautiful. You look at them from behind, not necessarily so beautiful. You don't know their beauty until you see them from in front. Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, from whichever angle you look at him, is beauty upon beauty. Yeah. As the ulama mentioned, that his father is Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhul kareem. His mother, Sayyidina Fatima radiallahu anha. His grandfather, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. His grandmother, Sayyidatuna Khadija radiallahu anha. Yeah. When you look at his other lineage, Sayyidina Hamza is from amongst his family, Sayyid al-Shuhada. When you look at his brother, Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu. You look at his sister, Sayyidatuna Zainab radiallahu anha. From whichever angle you look at, you know, the first food that enters into him, the saliva of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His name given from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, how much of an immense blessing is upon this individual that we have the honor to mention. And so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as these grandsons of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam grow up, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam showers them with affection and love. As many narrations of this. Yeah. Many narrations of the love of the Prophet ﷺ for Sayyidina Imam Hassan, Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhuma. The Prophet ﷺ, in one narration narrated by Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, he comes at the time of Isha to address the Sahaba al-Kiram. And when he comes, both of his grandchildren are playing around on him. And they're busying the Prophet ﷺ. One's jumping on his neck and the other one's on his shoulder and then jumping in his lap. But look at the tarbiyah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and let's learn from this. You know, this definition of masculinity that we have in this day and age, where we don't kiss our children or we don't show them love. This is not from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And he is the greatest of men ﷺ. He used to kiss his children, he used to hug his children. The Prophet ﷺ used to kiss Sayyidina Imam Hussain on his lips. That's the affection that he showed them. Yeah. Some people may think it's a bit too far. He used to give them his tongue to suck on. This is the affection. You know, there's no separation from the two, the Prophet ﷺ. And so Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, he sees that one is sitting on the left, one is sitting on the right. And the Prophet ﷺ is about to address the Sahaba, and he's kissing this one and he's kissing that one, going from left to right, kissing him and hugging him. And so he says, Ya Rasulullah, he says, if you give me permission, I will take them home so that you can address the companions. The Prophet ﷺ said, leave them. And then they say, Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh mentions that at the door of the masjid we saw a light appear. And the Prophet ﷺ told Sayyidina Imam Hassan and Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhuma, go and follow this light and go home. And so this light guided them home and they returned home. Yeah. It's one of the karamas of the Sibtain. And so when we look at Sayyidina Imam Hussain, we see that not only did the Prophet ﷺ praise them, but we see the Sahaba al-Kiram also show their love and praise them as well. Just as we heard Shah Sahib, Hafidhahullah, mention Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anh, carrying them on his shoulders. And this is a sharaf, you take this as a sharaf. You know, this is like people wear crowns on their heads and they have pride and honor about it. Imagine carrying on your shoulders the grandchildren of the Prophet ﷺ. You'd sacrifice every wealth, every crown that you had to be able to carry them on your shoulders. And so when we look at Sayyidina Amr bin al-As radiallahu anh, he was sat around the Kaaba and he saw somebody appear from the distance, Sahabi al-Jalil, and he asks his companions with him, he says, who is this individual? And they say, this is the most beloved person on earth to those beyond the heavens. The most beloved person on earth to those beyond the heavens. In other words, the closest person to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who was it? Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. Yeah. Sayyidina Ja'bir bin Abdullah radiallahu anhu, he says, anyone who wants to see a person of paradise on earth, then let him look at the face of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. Heaven on earth. Yeah, we hear that about the Rawda. ما بين البيت ومنبري روضة من رياض الجنة. Yeah, Uhud, mountain from Jannah. Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu used to walk on earth amongst people, but he was from the people of paradise. Imagine that. Yeah, this is the rank of the person. And so he was born in the 4th year of Hijrah, in the month of Sha'ban, around the 5th of Sha'ban. And when we look at the ayah that I had the honor of mentioning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes to remove impurity from you, O family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and completely purify you. And so when we look at the life of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, the thing that people remember the most is the end. Yeah. But the greatness of the end is based upon the beauty of the beginning and the sacrifice of the beginning as well. The rank of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu and what he attained and what he acquired doesn't come about easily. It doesn't come about by sitting back and relaxing and delighting in delights and the pleasures and the entertainments of life, like we see the likes of Yazid doing. You see two different parallels, two different paradigms, two different examples to lead your life in. In that day and age, you have the example of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, and on the other example you have Yazid. And you had people, what's worrying about this is you had people who followed Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. That's amazing, that's expected, that's understood. But the worrying thing is, you had people who supported on the side of Yazid. That's what baffles the mind. That's what baffles the mind. How? And we're seeing the same in this day and age. You see tyrants. And the people who follow tyrants and oppressors are those who are cowards. The cowards follow the oppressors and the tyrants. Why? Because they're worried about themselves. They're worried about their wealth. They're worried about their life. They're worried about a piece of land. They're worried about the children. But people of bravery and honor, they put their life on the line for the truth. They don't care. They don't give themselves up. They're not that cheap. Their blood isn't that worthless that they're willing to give it up for any old lie and any old treachery and any old disobedience of the Prophet ﷺ. They'd rather die a life of honor and respect, like Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anh did, rather than a life of disobedience and embarrassment in the hereafter like Yazid did. There's two paradigms, and those parallels still live for us today. And inshallah we'll stop on this point for Salatul Isha. Inshallah I hope inshallah you can continue with us after Salatul Isha. If not for me, then there's food afterwards inshallah. Yeah, so if your mind doesn't want to stay, let your stomach stay at least inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Inshallah, so we're continuing, we were talking about Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate the rank of the Ahl-Ul-Bait and increase our love for them. And we were talking about how there are these two paradigms and two examples, and in many places in history we see this taking place even till today, that you have the example of good and you have the example of evil, and you have those who wish to follow evil out of fear of their world being lost, whether it's their life or whether it's their loved ones, whether it's their wealth that they fear for, and so they side with those who they consider to be powerful. Yeah. Who they consider to be powerful. Whereas the people of truth, they stick with the people of truth and good character and honor and righteousness and nobility, even if it means putting their life, their wealth, their families on the line. Yeah, those two examples exist. You see that with Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, you see that with Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. Again and again we see that throughout history, and the greatest example is that of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. You know, the narration that the great-grandfather of Sayyidina Imam Hussain narrates, Abu Talib, when he talks about the offer that the people of Quraysh made to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this incident takes a big role in the character of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu, where he's offered everything. He's offered wealth, he's offered women, he's offered position. And yet he says, if you were to give the sun in my right and the moon in my left, then I will not leave this path. Now when we look at these two individuals, Sayyidina Imam Hassan, Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhuma, then we see, even though they are two brothers born within short proximity of one another, that we see slight differences in their characteristics. They say Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiyallahu anhu, he resembled the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam in the upper part of his body. Yeah. And they say Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu resembled the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam in the lower part of his body. And what they mean by this is that Sayyidina Imam Hassan was blessed with hilm and clemency. He was gentle, he was forgiving, he was overlooking. Whereas Sayyidina Imam Hussain was about thabat, he was about standing upon the truth, not wavering upon the truth. Not that one didn't have the other, but it's about what was predominant in their characteristics. So Sayyidina Imam Hussain was very steadfast upon the truth. This is the truth and I will give it victory, I don't care what happens. Whereas Sayyidina Imam Hussain was forgiving and he was overlooking. He would forgive his own rights and give them over to the others. And we see that in the incidents that take place in his life. So Sayyidina Imam Hassan and Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhuma, these two gifts to the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as they grow older, we see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam referred to them with different titles. And these indicate the qualities that they carried. And these are the qualities that we want within our children. Remember the Prophet ﷺ, he left the two heavy things behind. And this is the greater of the two riwayas. إِنِّي تَارِكٌ فِيكُمْ الثَّقَلَيْنِ, that I'm leaving behind two heavy things with you. If you are to follow them, then you will never go astray. Now they're often mentioned, one is Kitab Allah wa Sunnati, whereas the more authentic tradition is the Book of Allah and my family. And so the family of the Prophet ﷺ are an example for us to follow. Yeah. And we do not do Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu justice if we just remember him on the 10th of Muharram. We have not done him justice. Is that all we're doing? We're just remembering the end of his life. What about the entire life that he spent? All of those years that he spent. What lessons do we take from that? And one of the first things that we see from the affection of the Prophet ﷺ, from the naming of his grandchildren, and from the upbringing of these grandchildren, is the importance of raising sound families. I've seen many examples of brothers who have children, a'udhu billah, outside of wedlock. Many examples of brothers who've had children with women who aren't even Muslims. These children are lost. They have Muslim names, they have no Muslim reality. They don't know about Islam, they don't follow Islam. Countless. These are just ones that I know of personally. Imagine across the world, if Muslims just looked after their families, men and women, husband and wife took on this responsibility. They looked after their sons and their daughters. And we see that in the example of the family of the Prophet ﷺ. Sayyiduna Zainab radiallahu anha was at Karbala with Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. The women were no less than the men. Don't think that they were any less. Their tarbiyah was great and lofty as well. Some of the women were martyred upon the battlefield as well. If only we looked after our family, the state of this ummah would be immense. One of the greatest calamities that has befallen this ummah is the neglect of the family. Chasing the dunya and sacrificing the family. We've given up our families, we're doing night shifts and we're spending late hours. What time do we actually spend in building our families? And we see the Prophet ﷺ praising his children. And we should do this, praise of our children. Give them positive praise. Don't shout at them and scream at them all of the time. That won't do anything. You see the Prophet ﷺ praising their good qualities. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned them as Sayyida Shababi Ahl-Ul-Jannah. That my grandchildren are the leaders of the youth in paradise. And why did he mention the youth? Because the youth who are in paradise are one of the elect categories. They're from the VIP elect in Jannah. They're from the 7 shaded by Allah by His shade when there is no other shade. The youth. Those who spent their youth in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are beloved to Allah. And at the head of them, the greatest of them is Sayyidina Imam Hussain and Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. Because they spent their youth in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They spent their youth in the obedience and servitude of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And so Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, he was known, his qualities were what? He used to pray salah a lot. He used to fast profusely. His immense and lengthy recitation of the Quran. Staying up in the night worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is description. This is the description of his life, how he spent his life. And I gave you the example on the other side. Womanizing, eating, drinking alcohol. You see that in the life of Yazid. These two completely polar opposites of examples in this day and age. And this is who the battle was between, these two examples. One on the right and one on the left. One of purity and piety, and one of treachery and one of sin. And so from the names that the Prophet ﷺ referred to Sayyidina Imam Hussain with, first of all, is Az-Zaki, the pure one. Ar-Rashid, the guided one. Al-Tayyib, the pure one. Al-Wafi, the loyal one. Al-Sayyid, the master. Al-Mubarak, the blessed one. Al-Tabi' li maradatillah, the one who follows the pleasure and the happiness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as-sibt. As-sibt is your child from your daughter. In the Arabic language, you have hafid, which is your grandchildren from your son, and you have as-sibt, which are your grandchildren from your daughter. So these are the titles that the Prophet ﷺ referred to him as. And mashallah, Shah Sahab mentioned the rhyme that is attributed to Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. Is also attributed to Sayyidina Fatima, that when Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu was born, she said in a rhyme, joking with Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhul kareem, she said, Inna ibni shabihum bin nabi laysa shabihum bi Ali. She said, my son, he resembles the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he doesn't resemble Ali. Karramallahu wajhal kareem. Yeah, there was that jest between one another. Now you, again, look at the beautiful relationship. Sayyidina Ali doesn't get angry. Yeah. There were women joked with their men. You know, the Prophet ﷺ raced with Sayyidatuna Aisha radiyallahu anha. Yeah. There's this the beautiful relationship in the family. And there was a beautiful quote that I read recently by one of the scholars, reminded me of the Ahl-Ul-Bait, and that in that he said, make your households a sign of how Islam works for your children. When we look around the world, when we talk about Islam to our children, where do they see Islam? Where can they see, you know, we talk about Islam being the best and it's the fastest growing religion, it's the truth. Where do they actually see that in reality taking place? Do we see it anywhere? Not even the Haramain al-Sharifain and Masjid al-Aqsa are protected from that. You know, we can't even give that as examples to them. Yeah. So where do they see it? They can see it in your household, and that's what the Prophet ﷺ did in his household. This is what Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidina Fatima radiyallahu anhuma did in their household. If we look at the marriage of Sayyidina Imam Hussain and Sayyidina Ali karramallahu wajhal kareem with Sayyidina Fatima radiyallahu anhuma, the Prophet ﷺ 6 months after their marriage, he used to pass by their house and he used to say, As-salah, as-salah ya Ahl-Ul-Bait. This is the environment that they were brought up in. Yeah. What happens when you have a habit of something is that it can even override the intellect. Your intellect, your mind can tell you one thing, but your habit, what you have grown up in, what is part of your very nature from your childhood, overrides that. And that can work positively and that can work negatively. You have a child that is trained up on salah, on honesty and truth. Later on they have friends who try and take them away from that. But because naturally, from a young age, they have salah within their system, they will not follow their friends, they will follow their habit. And what we see in this example is that you can have people who are brought up upon sin and disobedience, and they can see the family of the Prophet ﷺ before them. People who are described by the Prophet ﷺ as being people from paradise, but their thirst and their hunger and their wanting to cling on to power takes them to such an extent that they will even kill those people who are beloved to the Prophet ﷺ. You see how the very nature of a person can override the intellect. You know, how could they be so blinded? How could they be so hard-hearted that they could sacrifice Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu? You know, this history it hurts, it's painful. You know, when you read this story, if you do not shed a tear, then you need to go and find a spiritual doctor. Seriously. If you do not cry, if you are not upset, when you read this story and you look at the events that take place at Karbala, there's something wrong with your heart. And you need to go and find a Shaykh. Yeah, seriously. Because the scholars say that anybody who was involved in the killing of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu, and anybody who is happy with the killing of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu, the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is upon those people. And one of the karamas, one of the miracles of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu is that anybody who was involved in his martyrdom, every single one of them died a very terrible death. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. Yeah. And so we don't want to be a part of that. And our fakhr and our honor is that we are connected with the Ahl-Ul-Bait, inshaAllah. And so another aspect of his seerah is they say that Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu, he used to live in Madinatul Munawwara. You know, how beautiful. His city is even beautiful. How many things can we mention? It's just, the list goes on and on. They say he performed 25 hajjs walking from Madinatul Munawwara. Walking. Yeah. Mashyan. Not even on camel. Yeah. Walked all the way from Madinatul Munawwara to Makkatul Mukarram. We know, we complain when we have to wait at Jeddah airport. We complain when we have to catch, before these trains came about, the long drive from Makkatul Mukarramah to Madinatul Munawwara, we complain. Imagine on foot walking from Madinatul Munawwara to Makkatul Mukarramah. If we look at his children, what's mentioned of them is that there's different narrations, there's 8 or 9 children. And Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu married a number of times. And part of this hikmah, and people see this as a criticism, but remember, when Allah decrees something for His beloved people, Allah knows the wisdom in His actions. Yeah. So for example, the marriage of the Prophet ﷺ would say that Aisha radiallahu anha, people criticize that. They don't see the hikmah. Yeah, she preserves a quarter of the religion. The Prophet ﷺ lived a very short life. Yeah, 63 years sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So she preserved many of the intricate details of this deen. And if it wasn't for her marriage, she wouldn't have been able to. We look at similar to Sayyidina Imam Hussain. If we look at his children, first of all, Sayyidina Ali al-Akbar, he has 3 children named Ali. How beautiful is that? 3 children. Ali al-Akbar, Ali al-Awsat, and Ali al-Asghar. Yeah, look at how much love he had for his father. Yeah. Ali al-Akbar radiyallahu anhu, and there's nothing wrong in saying alayhimus salam after the names of the Ahl-Ul-Bait as well. Yeah, nothing wrong in saying alayhimus salam. And so he fought with his father and he was shaheed. Ali al-Awsat, and he is very significant. Yeah, the middle Ali, he is Zainul Abidin. Yeah, beautiful title he has. He is called the beauty of the worshippers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Zainul Abidin. They say about him that he used to pray 1,000 raka'ahs of nafil in the night. Yeah. Sayyidina Zainul Abidin radiyallahu anhu. And he is the miracle of the Ahl-Ul-Bait. That when Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu went with 72 approximately of his Ahl-Ul-Bait, imagine 72 of the greatest people living on earth at that time. Traveling. They traveled from Madinatul Munawwara to Makkatul Mukarramah. From Makkatul Mukarramah they were heading towards Kufa. They were stopped in Karbala. That he survives. And the amount of lives that they took, one more life was nothing for them. But he survived. Why? He survived Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decree. And from him onwards, the lineage of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam continues, to the extent that today, there's no land of the Muslims where you will not find the Ahl-Ul-Bait of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's a karama. Yes, so this is a karama, that when they thought on these vile people, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, who was the minister of Yazid over Basra and Kufa, he actually, when Sayyidatuna Zainab was brought to his castle, he was saying, praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has allowed us to destroy your family. A'udhu billah. How could he utter these words? And he doesn't know how many miles into Jahannam he will go for those words that he has said. Yeah. That he says these words, where she says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us honor with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We're from his family. We don't need any honor from anybody else after that. Yeah. But the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when people thought the family is finished, the enemies declared, look what we have done, we have uprooted your family, we've destroyed your family. Where are their families today? Does anybody know who they are? Do they even exist? Are they praised? Are they remembered? Whereas the family of the Prophet ﷺ still prevalent, alhamdulillah. The biggest family on the face of the planet. Biggest family on the face of the planet. That knows its lineage and is connected back to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. It's a miracle of the Ahl-Ul-Bait, seriously. It's amazing. Subhanallah. Yeah. And we see this in history. We saw it with the Mongols. When people thought that Islam is destroyed, Islam is finished. We saw it in Russia. They thought they could destroy the Chechens and that's it, we're going to walk all over them. We look at all of these instances where people fight for the truth for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even when they think that their worldly powers will allow them to crush the people of Allah. Allah gives victory to his people. Battle of Badr, countless examples, one after another. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that by them he gives victory to the people of Kashmir in this day and age as well. And then we see Sayyidina Ali al-Asghar. And Sayyidina Ali al-Asghar, he was still a young child, drinking milk. And he was killed whilst he was being carried in the hands of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu. An arrow strikes him. Yeah. And can you imagine, one thing is being martyred yourself, another is seeing your own children being martyred. It's easier to be martyred than to see your children being martyred. And we can't fathom. Yeah, those who have children understand this. Just imagine for a moment, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our children. But if that was to happen with your child, how would it feel? These children are more beloved to us than our own children. These are more beloved to us. We would, like Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu said, may my parents be sacrificed for you. For who? Sayyidina Imam Hassan, Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. We say the same inshaAllah. May our parents, may our children, may our families be sacrificed for the Ahl-Ul-Bait. Yeah. Serious, because we have value, and our iman is based upon our love for them. If it wasn't for them and their sacrifice, we wouldn't be here today. Yeah, our iman depends upon them. Anything we give for them is nothing. Then there's a son called Muhammad. There's a son called Ja'far. There's a son called Abdullah. Again, Abdullah, he is martyred in Karbala. Ja'far, he passes away in his young age. But another son of his, Sayyidina Abdullah radiallahu anhu, he's martyred in Karbala. Then you have his daughters, you have Zainab, and you have Sukaina, and you have Fatima. He has a sister called Zainab radiallahu anha. And his sister, and the children are important as well, because she supported Sayyidina Imam Hussain. What a beautiful relationship there between brother and sister. You see these beautiful relationships that take place, whether it's mother and son in Islam. You see that with the Prophet ﷺ, Sayyidatuna Amina, and the Prophet ﷺ, whether it's the Prophet ﷺ with his wet nurses like Sayyidatuna Halima radiallahu anha, or the auntie of the Prophet ﷺ, Fatima, the mother of Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhul kareem, who the Prophet ﷺ buries in the grave himself. He lies in her grave first, and he calls her his mother after his mother. You see this relationship between men and women within Islam is amazing. This world today tries to make out that Islam has an issue with women. It doesn't have an issue with women. Islam honors women. Islam raises women. Muslims may not. That's the difference. There's a difference between what Islam does and what Muslims do. We as Muslims need to display that. Honor your women. If an enemy, we look at Kashmir now, and we talk about the risk our women are. Think of yourself, how are you treating your women? When an enemy touches your women, you get angry. But you yourself, how are you treating your women? Let's really reflect upon that. Let's make sure that we're giving honor to our women. As they have the biggest attack in this day and age. So let's protect them. The Sayyidina Zainab radiallahu anha, she was married to Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Ja'far. Ja'far was the brother of Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhul kareem. So she was married to her cousin. Sayyidina Ja'far, her father-in-law, he was martyred. And the Prophet ﷺ loved him very much. When the Muslims took over Khaybar, when Sayyidina Ali uprooted the door of Khaybar, that on that same day Sayyidina Ja'far came from Habasha. And the Prophet ﷺ said, I don't know which I am more happy about, the opening of Khaybar or the arrival of Ja'far. And the Prophet ﷺ kissed him. And the Prophet ﷺ said, you resemble me from amongst my companions. Sayyidina Ja'far, her father-in-law. You see that connectedness. From the other companions, or the members of the Ahl-Ul-Bait that would at Karbala, just listen to the names and it will answer many questions people may have. Sayyidina Abu Bakr bin Ali, Sayyidina Umar bin Ali, Sayyidina Uthman ibn Ali. These were children of Sayyidina Ali from other than Sayyidina Fatima radiallahu anha. These were martyred at Karbala. Sayyidina Ali named his children after Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhum ajma'in. What does that tell you? Because Sayyidina Ali used to name his children as a form of protection with those names and an answer to his enemies. So if those who have any enmity against the Sahaba al-Kiram, especially the Khulafa al-Rashideen, just take the names of the children of Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhul kareem as your answer. There's no answer after that. You don't need any evidence after that. When we look going forward, and there's much to mention about Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, and what I would say to our brothers and sisters from the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah is, please read the seerah of the Ahl-Ul-Bait. Let's not be of those people who only turn to the Ahl-Ul-Bait because the other groups turn to the Ahl-Ul-Bait and we're competing with them. When you do a search on the internet about the Ahl-Ul-Bait, the first 3, 4, 5, probably 6 pages are all websites of the Shia. You do not find a single website of the Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah talking about the Ahl-Ul-Bait of the Prophet ﷺ. You do a search on YouTube about speeches of the Ahl-Ul-Bait. Page after page after page of the Shia talking about the Ahl-Ul-Bayt. Ahl-Sunnah awla bi Ahl-Bayt. The name of the term Shia comes from the group of people in Kufa, in Iraq, who claimed to support Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhahul kareem, and later on Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu. They were called Shi'atu Ali, the party of Ali. That's where the name originates from. And when you look at history, and we're going to see that these people, over 500 letters came to Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu, over 12,000 signatures requesting him to come. These are the people who were treacherous and turned their backs on Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu. They left him in that situation. Our name, the Ahl-Sunnah, comes directly from Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhul kareem. That's where the name of Ahl-Sunnah comes from. And so when we look at this incident that takes place later on, near the end of the apparent life of the Prophet of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu, and he lives for 57 years, and in the 61st year of Hijri, in the month of Muharram, this incident takes place. And when we look at dates within Islam, it's one of those dates that are preserved. It's probably the most authentic preserved date in the history of humanity, and especially in the history of Islam. Yeah. When we look at the birth of the Prophet ﷺ, for example, and we look at the Isra wal Mi'raj, for example, we look at the revelation of the Quran, for example, these are preserved dates within Islam. If you were to ask people the top 5 dates they know about in the history of Islam, one of them will be the 10th of Muharram. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen that this date be remembered. Well, when it's remembered for many reasons. It's connected with Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam, is connected with Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, and different incidents. On all due respect to all of them, when you say 10th of Muharram, you don't necessarily remember all of those, you remember the martyrdom of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu. Yeah. That's the incident that you remember. And so when we look at Sayyidina Imam Hussain, after Sayyiduna Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu, Yazid takes control of the Khilafah. And from amongst the people of Iraq and those kinds of lands, they accept Yazid as their leader and they swear allegiance to him. The people of Madinatul Munawwara refuse. They don't accept. Yeah. From amongst them, the greatest of the Sahaba, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Zubayr, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu, and Sayyidina Imam Hussain. These 4 especially, they refuse. And so the ministers are given commands by Yazid that force them to give bay'ah, and either they give me bay'ah or attack them with swords. Yeah. And so Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu, he does not give his hand to Yazid, nor does he consider his khilafah as legitimate. Nobody in Islam considers his khilafah to be a legitimate khilafah. He had no right to be the leader at that time. Yeah. None at all. There were many of the people before him that were greater than him, more worthy. At the head of them, Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu himself, the only surviving male child of Sayyidina Fatima radiyallahu anha, yeah, and of the lineage of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The head of them was him. So he leaves initially to Makkatul Mukarram, where Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhu is, and he starts receiving letters from Kufa. And these people are saying, look, we don't accept Yazid as our leader, we accept you as our leader, we want you to come and give us freedom, come and save us, come and take our allegiance, and we will support you. So Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu, he sends his cousin Sayyidina Muslim ibn Aqil to go and verify the news in Kufa. He sends him. So he goes. And when he goes, because he had received, like I mentioned, 500 letters, 12,000 signatures, Sayyidina Muslim bin Aqil initially the people respond to him and they say, yes, we will give bay'ah and we will support you and we will support Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. So he writes a letter back to Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu and he requests him to come. He says, the matter is, as it was written to you, come and take the allegiance of these people. Now, what Yazid did was that he felt that the governor of that time of Kufa was weak. Yeah. And he wouldn't be able to fulfill his commands. So he puts this individual, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, a wretched individual, harsh-hearted individual. He places him in control of Basra. He was the governor of Basra. He places him as the governor of Basra and Kufa as well. And he commands him with harshness towards anybody who doesn't pledge allegiance to him. And so when Sayyidina Muslim ibn Aqil comes, he is residing in the house of one of the people there, and Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, he requests this person, the person who is hosting Sayyidina Muslim ibn Aqil, he calls him to him. He requests for him to come and he says, who is living in your house? And he says, there's a person from Madinatul Munawwara. And he says, what's his name? He says, Muslim bin Aqil. He says, what does he want? And he's saying he's just here on some of his affairs. He says, hand him over to me. He says, no, I'm not going to hand him over to you. This is just the beginning. The host of Sayyidina Muslim ibn Aqil, they smashed his face to the extent that they broke his jaw and they broke his nose. Just because he didn't listen. When Sayyidina Muslim ibn Aqil heard about this, he came out with those that were following him. There were about 4,000 at that time. And they circled the castle of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. They demanded for him to be handed over. What he did, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, is he took the leaders of these 4,000, of the leaders of these tribes, and he invited them in. And he tricked them and he gave them wealth. How many a man sells himself for wealth? And he said, look, this is just, politics, and these people are making up lies about me. I haven't done any of this. And he even invites a poet inside called Qais. He's considered one of the most eloquent poets of that area of Kufa. And he tells him, he says, go to the top of the castle and announce to the people that the bay'ah in this land will be to the governor, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, and there is no bay'ah to Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, and you should not follow Muslim ibn Aqil, and anybody who does, we will deal with them. So Qais goes to the top and he declares, he says, O people, he says, Sayyidina Imam Hussain is upon the truth and follow him. And Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, he is treacherous and do not even come near him. His army killed him from the back and he falls to the ground from the top of the castle. And then they threaten all of those 4,000 and they say, whoever says what he has said, then he will be answered with the sword. And anybody who follows Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, he will be left alone. All of these people, more or less one after another, they say Sayyidina Muslim ibn Aqil was praying with the people. When he entered into Kufa, he had 12,000 with him. On this incident, he had 4,000. They say when he gave the salam for Maghrib and he looked back, there wasn't even a single person with him. This is cowardice. Wealth, fear of death, made these people turn away against the family of the Prophet ﷺ. To the extent that on that night, then Sayyidina Muslim ibn Aqil writes a letter to Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. He says, look, this matter isn't as it seemed. These people have turned their backs. Initially they pledged their allegiance, but they have been treacherous in their word and they are not able to fulfill it. And so the first letter had reached Sayyidina Imam Hussain. He gets ready with his family to go to Karbala. And this shows you that his intention was not war. His intention wasn't war. He didn't go with an army, he went with his family. His intention wasn't war. His intention was to give these people their right and take their support and be their leader and guide them towards Allah and the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When Sayyidina Imam Hussein's about to leave, the first thing he does is he goes to the Kaaba and makes tawaf. And mother of the believers, Sayyidatuna Salama, she sees him, she knows his intention, she starts to weep. And the people, the companions of Makkatul Mukarramah, they say, we never heard, and look at the modesty of the household of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, say we never heard the voice of Sayyidatuna Salama except for that day. It's the first time we ever heard her voice. when she was crying. And Sayyidina Imam Hussain goes to her, he says, my mother, why are you crying? She says, I see you and I remember your mother. Sayyidina Fatima radiallahu anha, when she used to look after you as you were a child. And she says, I bear witness, by Allah, if she was here right now, she would not allow you to go to Karbala with your family. And I demand that you do not go. And he says, oh mother, that when the Prophet ﷺ came back from the Ghar of Hira to Sayyidatuna Khadija radiallahu anha, my grandmother, that she said to him that do not worry, Allah will not forsake you. Yeah. And he said that for being forsaken and forsaking is not from the nature of the family of the Prophet ﷺ. These people have hope in me, I will not let them down in Kufa. I will go to them. And so he leaves. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he begs Sayyidina Imam Hussain not to go. He says, look, do not go. These people will trick you, they will not fulfill what they have promised, do not go. He refuses. He says, my intentions are other than what you are asking of me. He says the second option then, he says, go to Yemen. MashaAllah, the blessed land of Yemen. He says that land, it is vast and it has many people who love you and will follow you. Again, Sayyidina Imam Hussain doesn't take that opinion of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas. He says, the third option I give you, you go but do not take your family with you. He says, I beg you. He's still Sayyidina Imam Hussain, out of giving victory to the truth, he proceeds. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar from Madinatul Munawwara, he comes all the way from Madinatul Munawwara. He hears about this incident. He comes to Mecca, he's told that Sayyidina Imam Hussain has left. He catches up with him, begs him not to go. But Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu wanted to give victory to these people and give victory to the truth and expose Yazid for what he is and wake up the ummah of the Muslims at that time. And that they were carrying on, allowing somebody like Yazid to continue in power. So Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu continues until he comes to the land of Karbala 3 days before the 10th. And when he comes there, he asks the people, what is this place? And they say, Karbala. And he says, I remember my father, Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhul kareem. He says, me and my brother, Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiallahu anhu, were young children, we were with our father. And he came to this land of Karbala. And he asked the people, what is this land? And they said, Karbala. They said he dismounted from his horse and he took the land. He took a piece of earth. And he said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. He said, verily my sons, you will be martyred and the blood of my family will run in these lands. Yeah. They asked him, who will do this? He didn't answer. And Sayyidina Ali said, Karbun wa bala'un. Karb in Arabic means calamity. And bala means affliction. Sayyidina Ali called that land Karbun wa bala'un. A calamity and an affliction. And that's what Sayyidina Imam Hussain says about that land as well. When he gets there, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, he appoints somebody called Hurr bin Yazid at-Tamimi. He places him in charge and he sends him with 1,000 people, 1,000 soldiers to Sayyidina Imam Hussain. He says, encircle him, do not allow him to enter into Kufa. He was scared. He was scared that if he enters, the people will swear allegiance to him and he will overrun me and take control from me. So he goes, and this individual, he says to Sayyidina Imam Hussain, I request you to go back. Do not continue. These people have their swords unsheathed and they will kill you. You know, he had some softness in his heart. And Sayyidina Imam Hussain says, just all I want is I want to meet Yazid. Let me speak to him. He says it's not going to happen. But Sayyidina Imam Hussain stayed upon his path. One of the amazing things that takes place here is Hurr, this individual with 1,000 people, come to more or less kill Sayyidina Imam Hussain. When it's time for Salah, he orders his army to pray behind Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. And his soldiers are perplexed. They're like, we've come to kill this individual, you're telling us to pray behind him? He says, by Allah, he is the son of the daughter of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there's nobody on the face of this earth greater than him. And they say in Arabic, they say the greatest praise is what your enemy praise you with. Your friends and your followers will praise you anyway. It may be out of exaggeration. But when your enemy praises you, then that is, they are praising you because they have no other option. Even they have to admit. Like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they called him as-Sadiq al-Amin, even those who didn't follow him sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so this individual later on, when the 10th of Muharram comes, it's the day of Jum'ah. Again, this individual, Hur, amazing story that happens with him. Hur means free in Arabic. We'll just end, we have a few moments. Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anh gives a speech. And he mentions to the people that I give you an option. I'm advising you. He mentions his connection with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he tells them, do not commit this crime that you will regret. The Hur, he switches sides. Him and about 30 of his people, they come onto the side of Sayyidina Imam Hussain and they say, I seek forgiveness in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for siding against you. And he asks Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anh, will you forgive me? Look at the generosity of the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sayyidina Imam Hussain says to him, you are free in this world and you are free in the hereafter. You came against me with 1,000, but I forgive you. You ask for forgiveness, I forgive you. This is the generosity of the Ahl-Ul-Bait of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sayyidina Imam Hussain asks him, just listen to this, that what made you change your mind? He says, yeah, Sayyidina Imam Hussain, I was praying Salatul Fajr behind you. And I was in the position of tashahhud. And I read, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. And he said, it occurred to me. He said, how can it be that I send salam upon the family in my salah and I face them with swords outside of salah? How can it be? Doesn't make sense. And so I made tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and I am one of your followers. He's one of the first to be martyred. He stands forward to defend Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, he's martyred. So the battle takes place and these people, 72, from the time of Fajr to the time of Jum'ah, against over 5,000. Armed to the teeth these people were, on horses. And it just shows you their bravery. A battle takes place probably over 6 hours. Many of them women. Battle for 6 hours, 72 stand against 5,000. And they battle with bravery, like lions, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed for them martyrdom. And one of the wretched individuals, Ibn Anas his name is, he is the one who strikes Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. And Sayyidina Imam Hussein's battling on. They say he had over 33 gashes, and over 34 wounds, over 70 marks on his body, Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. This individual, he severs the head from the body. Yeah. Can you imagine? The individual who used to climb on the back of the Prophet ﷺ whilst in salah, who the Prophet ﷺ kissed, carried on his shoulders. Yeah. He used to smell them. He used to say, these are my 2 flowers, that they are treated in this way. Yeah. Eventually the martyrs are taken, and they're taken to Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. And this wretched individual, he has a stick in his hand and he's poking the face of Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu. And at that time, Sayyidina Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu is in that gathering. And he says to him, do not dare. He says, I myself saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam kiss the lips of Sayyidina Imam Hussain. And I saw him kissing this grandson of his. Do not dare treat him the way you are treating him right now. Yeah. But this is the sacrifice of the Ahl-Ul-Bait for the sake of this religion. And what we learn from this incident are many, many lessons. First of all, that if you follow your nafs, like Yazid, that it will turn you blind, deaf and dumb. This is the biggest, what is tasawwuf about? Is to stop you from becoming a Yazid. Is to stop you from following your shahawat, to the extent that when you have the family of the Prophet ﷺ in front of you, not even that you can stop at. We do it. We sacrifice salah for our televisions. We sacrifice fajr for our sleep. This is the nafs. We're preferring the nafs over Islam. We're taking that victory that we should be giving to Islam, and we're giving victory to the shaitan and to the nafs instead. Whereas Sayyiduna Imam Hussain radiallahu anh, his final moments are in sajda. He's in sajda in those final moments of his life. About staying upon the path of truth. Even if the whole world goes against you, we do not waver from La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Even if it's our lives. Allah has shown throughout history that Muslims gave their lives. In the Indo-Pak, you look at the shuhada from India and Pakistan. How many of them? Of Bangladesh, how many of them gave their lives? The likes of Tipu Sultan. This is recent history. How many people, even in Kashmir, over 100,000 people have been martyred in those lands. Look at Palestine, look at Gaza, look at Chechnya, look at Bosnia. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always gives victory to the people of the truth. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He keeps us upon the path of truth. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala joins us in the hereafter with the people of truth. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase our love for the Ahl-Ul-Bait of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and allow us to be beloved to them. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'll end with one word of Sayyidina Ibrahim al-Nakha'i. Powerful. He says, even talking about the people who were part of this, he said, even if I was forgiven, he says, even, a'udhu billah, may Allah forbid, if I was a part of the people who killed Sayyidina Imam Hussain and the Ahl-Ul-Bait of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and it was said to me, you are forgiven and you can enter paradise. He says, I would still not be able to look at the face of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, him knowing that I killed his grandson. And what point is there in paradise if you don't get to look at the face of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? That's Sayyidina Ibrahim al-Nakha'i about those people that even if, some people say they're forgiven and this will happen and that will happen. Even if, he says, how are you going to face the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in paradise? How are you going to look at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And he knows that upon your hands is the responsibility of martyring Sayyidina Imam Hussain radiyallahu anhu. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not make us of those who harm this ummah and who harm the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to raise strong, brave, courageous families in this ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that will give victory to Islam in this generation and the next generation, inshallah. We'll cling to the truth. The attacks upon Islam are from every direction right now. Do not let go. The Mufassirin, when it says وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, that one tafsir is, and the translation of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and cling to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do not be divided. One interpretation of that is that rope of Allah is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And many of the Mufassirin say the interpretation of that rope is the Ahl-Ul-Bait of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They're the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every age to keep us and our lineage and our family and our children connected with the Ahl-Ul-Bait of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. May we die with them, and maybe we raised with them in Jannah. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.